Leslie and I have been doing these sermon recap, sermon response podcasts. And so this is going to be our third in the series, I believe. Not sure if it's the last one, but we didn't actually set an end date on this, so we'll see how long we keep going. The sermon we're reviewing today is Awakening Godly Zeal in Gen Z. This is by Kevin Kwan, November 27th, and the passage was Titus 2, 1-15. His big idea was that God's grace trains believers to develop a self-control that harnesses zeal and passion towards a life of godliness and good works. All of our sermons are available online, YouTube and podcast. Just search for FCBC Walnuts. This one is already up. Leslie, we have a couple questions. Let's start with the hard one.
Okay, let's go.
Where have you found the need to exercise self-control in your life?
You're going to start with that question? I had
Yeah,
that
I told you
later
it's the
on.
hard one.
Okay, so I suppose you're asking this question because one of the main points of the message was to be able to teach and exemplify self-control, which helps channel godly zeal into good works.
Right.
This is an aspect I have struggled all my life. I think that self-control means that you have to really prioritize things in the right order, like your needs first, and then you can have fun and enjoy yourself, enjoy life. So I think, it wasn't until I got really sick that I really started paying attention to like self-care, just the basic physical food and spiritual food. Those are aspects that are, they're necessities of life. But, I didn't really give a lot of attention to proper self-care until I got sick. And then I had to have a strict routine of, taking care of myself every day. So I'm just saying those are like the basic things. And I think about how, as a mom now, routines for my kids are really important because they have no clue how to take care of themselves. And if we don't set those good habits in place, they're probably going to not learn good habits of self-care and what's good for them. So for me, it's really the basics. I've struggled all my life. It's even things like it took a whole lifetime for me to learn how to, the dentist tells you to floss your teeth, and this is a small one, but even the basics to like Bible reading, like I need a lot of discipline to do that. So I actually need a lot of accountability to read my Bible. So I like to join Bible studies where I get to actually do homework and talk about it, what I'm learning. But those are very important disciplines that God wants us to engage in because they're good for us. So self-control is something that I really struggle with. Another one is when I get emotional, I get out of control. So that's another area. But yeah.
Man, well, thanks for being open about all of that stuff, Les. I always appreciate your honesty. You're never scared to be honest with me. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So what I found interesting is that you said that you mentioned self-care, and I don't think that Kevin said self-care, but
I know.
it sounds like you're equating self-care with self-control. Is it an equating that you're doing, or is it more like you're pinpointing that self-care can be a type of self-control if it's the right type?
There are certain parallels, I think, in like the routines that are really necessary for life. Like we should be eating and sleeping well. We should be taking care of our body so it can function optimally. So I think that if you don't have self-control, it can hinder you. And, there's consequences if you neglect self-care. You can become ill. You can become tired, grumpy,
Yeah. I'm really interested in the spiritual aspect of self-care that you're talking about. And to me, it sounds like it's the basic stuff, right? The basic stuff of reading your Bible,
Yep.
maybe praying,
Yeah.
maybe having certain accountability for, not just Bible reading, but maybe for different sins too. Is that what you're saying as well?
Yes, for sure. Self-control, it is your ability to control your behavior, your decisions, your actions, your
Mm,
speech, your words, even your emotions.
mm,
And a lot of those things trickle, it reveals like the sin struggles that we have, you know? So
mm, mm,
it's a lifelong process. I think that's what Kevin had mentioned in his second point. He said it takes patience. It is a
mm,
process of sanctification, and
mm.
the Lord is really gentle and patient with us. So we ought
Yeah.
to be that way towards the younger generation.
Yeah. I want to speak to this issue, and Kevin brought it up in the context of youth and just like scrolling like our phones. But
Yeah,
I don't think he really had to say it's just youth. I think it's across the board these days. And so I think that's something, especially since we're doing this on social media, that we should talk about. And it's the tendency for us to just be mindlessly scrolling. And what it really is, it is a lack of self-control.
it
It's
is.
wasting, it's not stewarding time. It's
Yes,
not having purposeful intentionality with our devices. It's energy that should be directed towards God or towards loving others,
mm-hmm.
or towards building our own spiritual muscles up, and not just mindless
Right,
entertainment.
right.
Now, I think, to be fair, there is a sense where, yeah, it's good to relax, right? But then you also have to think about, well, how are we relaxing? Are we, is it true resting in Jesus? Is it
Yeah,
true refreshment and fellowship with family and friends? Or is it just, straight up just mindless
yeah.
entertainment? So that's something that I appreciate Kevin for saying. And I just wanted to bring issue to it, that I don't think it's just youth. I think it's something across the board, and
Yes,
something
definitely.
that we should be talking about since we're broadcasting.
Yes. Yeah, it's very tempting, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, everyone's so close to their phones.
Mm-hmm.
They can't live a day without it. And that scrolling tendency comes out when we're you know, we want to veg, we want to take it easy. We want to break from focusing on what's in front of us. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it's a real temptation for myself included.
Yeah. Um, he was mentioning youth, and I do appreciate all of the different youth things that Kevin brought into the picture. Um, Les, what were you zealous about in your youth days?
Yeah.
In your when you were younger? Yeah, what were you zealous for? What were you passionate about? Did you learn any godly zeal from anyone in particular?
Well, like I said, I mentioned last time to you that I was really blessed to be able to grow up in the church setting,
Mm,
and the church essentially discipled me
mm,
as a believer. And so a lot of that zeal came from imitating the examples that I had. And I think some of the things that my church was really good at was, like I mentioned again last time, service and good works. And they were really practical and really zealous to serve the community. They even had programs that allowed students to serve alongside them. So we did a lot of things with like the Union Rescue Mission. Um, they trained us to learn how to evangelize and share the main points of the gospel. And I remember those things very vividly because, when you're young, you you have this like hunger to grow, and whatever they're throwing at you, you just taking it in. And so I really appreciated like being young and youthful. Like I was being taught these things,
yeah.
and then it developed, a pattern of learning how to do it, and mature into it, so I don't need examples, and I can start doing it on my own.
Mm,
And another thing that I have a really fond memory of is just that I was praying a lot. There were a lot of prayer warriors and intercessors at my old church. And we prayed a lot. We had a lot of prayer meetings. We
Hmm.
fasted on occasions. And I even joined the prayer team that was praying every Sunday before service.
Nice.
And prayer is one of those things. I feel like it's just like it's a personal fit for me. It's how I like to enjoy God. So I really appreciated that. I don't feel like prayer is necessarily like a vibrant ministry everywhere you go. So I look back on those days and just think that those were really sweet times for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel that prayer is still a priority in your life right now?
Oh, yes. I'm always down if someone wants to pray. That I could do that. Like someone who loves to study the word, it's like the equivalent of me like just wanting to pray and be in God's presence. So the answer is yes,
Hmm.
and I wish more people loved it and was passionate to do it.
I mean, the reason why I ask is because I think it's great when you can see that, I guess the good things that you're zealous about in your youth carry over um, as you become an adult. You know, I don't think I'll give you some examples from my life. Okay, so um, I think when I was younger, like I cared more about like the way that music sounded. So I'm talking about like worship music, right? So I'm talking about
See
like,
that? Yeah.
yeah, so just like just the way that it sounds, like just the maybe the performance aspect of it. And while I do still care about that, it kind of changed over time where I became more concerned or more zealous, I guess you could say, about I guess rightful worship. So more
Mm,
concerned about I guess the object of worship, God,
right. Right.
versus more like instead of the um, like the musical aspect of it, right? Um, so just like learning more about what do these lyrics mean? Are we singing the right types of songs?
Yeah, that's great.
What does biblical worship look like? Can it be modeled in a modern church setting today? Like that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then I think today I still care about that too. But now like I guess my attention has shifted more towards less towards like music and more towards I guess preaching and teaching, which is kind of I guess a different aspect of serving that I'm doing right now. That's kind of like a zeal trajectory for my life, I guess. And
Cool.
I guess for me it morphed a little bit, but some of it still stays the same. Sometimes the things of our youth remain with us.
Yeah, was it that, do you think for you it was because of certain models of people that you had, seen and been influenced by?
I think there's different things. I think definitely all of the different pastors, counselors, mentors, worship leaders that I've had in my life. Um, I think I think evangelicalism as a whole, kind of there were like different movements in there too. Um, and yeah, I'm not sure what it was exactly. I think it was a little bit of all the above. Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, obviously people played the most part, and then also I think just I don't know, maturing as a Christian. I don't know, maturing as a person, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes God just grows and puts things on your heart, even though you don't necessarily set out to do it. Like
Yeah.
I don't think I ever set out to become like a preacher or teacher, which is where I'm currently serving, and I just want to play music. But yeah, I find myself doing more preaching and teaching than I am playing music these days.
Yeah, well, Aaron, let me just take this opportunity to encourage you. Like I said, we don't really talk or cross paths very much,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I, I do see your ministries, and I know that you are being faithful to the Lord for His call, and I'm very encouraged by it that you're just being faithful, and I think it's great that you are willing to give things a try, and
Mm.
I see that, and I'm encouraged by it.
Oh, thanks, Liz. Thanks. Yeah, I think God takes us different directions in life, and sometimes we can't plan it, but You just have to trust him and just say, okay, God, I'm going to follow you wherever you go.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and whether it works out or not, you just trust and obey, right?
yeah. He will get the glory for that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say the same thing for you too, Les. I mean, we've talked about it before, right? The whole media ministry, Walnut Woman, it's all new
Yeah,
territory. So
yeah.
thanks for journeying together with me in social media.
Uh, yeah, it's great. People don't know this, but like Aaron is my go-to person to ask because he's our social media officer.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
consulted Aaron for everything related to the ministry. So he
yeah.
was the background voice behind our decision.
Oh,
So
thanks, Les. It's a lot of live and learn, and you're doing great. Yeah, you're doing great. Thanks for hopping on this. Um, Les, so I want to ask you how you see your kids following your example. Do they copy you in terms of what you're zealous about? And then also,
yeah.
how does this translate into the broader church of the younger generation following the example of the older generation? Do you see parallels? Do you see, I don't know, how family ministry impacts the bigger church?
Uh, yeah, the short answer is yes. And there is, it's not just black and white. Um, I think the life stage of our kids has certain characteristics where, like in the very early years, there's very obvious imitations when
Mm,
they start, coming out and following your physical moves, right?
mm,
Babies
mm.
do that.
Yeah.
And I think for uh, my relationship with my kids, the one thing that I really uh, wonder about is how long can I stay connected to them before they start deciding that I'm not cool anymore? Because we kind of see the pattern where
Mm,
parents start to, build tension and there's differences and misunderstandings. And I just wonder, like, where along the path of life does that happen? And is there any way to preserve those connections with our own kids? So,
mm,
this is a really important area for me to stay connected to them. That's
mm,
that plays partial into the role for why I desire to homeschool them. Like, I just want to maximize my time, and with all that this time that we're spending together in the house, we develop our own routines and our pace and our rhythm, and I get to put in or take out things that are important to us and that we want them to learn. And I think right now they may not follow our example quite yet because I think they're still learning. I think the
right.
relationship is very much like we're telling you everything, we're giving you commands, and you as a child need to learn obedience, and you need to learn how to listen to our voice and follow through.
Mm,
And
mm, mm.
but that's kind of like where we're at. So I don't know how much they're really going to follow in our footsteps later on in life. I don't
Sure,
know the answer to,
sure.
but I do see some bad examples that come out in terms of like our speech patterns, the
Mm,
way we respond to things, our temperament,
mm,
our word choices.
yeah.
We begin to see those things in their character and actions, and then we're humbled and realize, oh, we're exposing them to some bad habits.
Yeah.
Um, so I think right now we're still very much in that we're hoping to invest. I think the way this plays out in the church is it's like it you'll see it over time.
Mm,
um, it takes years to see like what your investment, how it will pay off, or what they take from it and what they want to keep and what they want to reject.
yeah.
And our hope is that when they look back on their childhood and this time that we have together as a family, they'll remember like these routines that we've established and traditions that we try to honor throughout the year to show the importance of things. Actually, this is something that our children's director, Katie, had mentioned when I was a new mom. She said, traditions are important for kids because when they're young, they're not going to remember what you tell them as much as things that you did together as a family.
Mm,
And then when they go back on those memories, then they'll remember what you did them for. But if you
mm,
just kind of tell them important truths, but there's no action, there's no memories, no
yeah.
traditions, like it'll be more easily forgotten. So traditions and routines right now, we're trying to establish those.
Yeah. Wow, that's no, that's great. That's great. If I can just kind of jump on what you're saying, yeah, like it's not enough just to like to have well, I don't know if it's right to say this. The truth needs to exist in context of like church life, right? And so
Yeah.
um yeah, you're talking about like years of building memories, but also just Sunday after Sunday, just
Yeah, that's part
that
of it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you also mentioned with your kids, it happens in a relational context, which I think is even true in the church. Now, yes, you can just attend, right? And you can just kind of observe what's
Yeah.
going on. But if you really want to know, and if you really want to know why and how, or have a personal investment in it, um, the relational aspect is huge, I think.
Right, right.
Yeah, I think church is supposed to be that relational aspect of it, right? It's not just like you attend, but it's belonging to the body as a whole and
Right,
interacting
right,
and
right.
relating to everybody in that way. Jesus, of course, being the head. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, no, yeah, I think all those things that you said are great examples of how it works out. Um, Les, where do you fit in the church right now? We've talked about this before a little bit. You said you're a millennial. Is that did you reveal
Okay.
you revealed your age in another episode?
I did not reveal my exact age, but I alluded to
Yeah.
you can pluck me out.
Yeah.
I had to do some homework on this because I wasn't really informed about the actual living generations.
Oh, sure,
And
sure,
I
sure.
think like the main ones that we have in our church are, the boomers.
Yeah.
And then right under them are the Gen Xers.
Hmm, hmm.
And then there's Generation Y, which is the millennials. And then there's Generation Z, which Kevin talked about.
Yeah.
And then the generation after them is like the post Gen Z.
Okay.
And
Right. Right.
there's
Right.
there's older ones, but we don't have that population in our church as much. Anyone over 75. That I
Mm.
think those are the other generations, but we don't have a high number in there.
Well, it'd
So
be elderly fellowship. I
it,
don't know
it
anything about
it would
elderly
be the
fellowship,
elderly.
but it would be elderly
Yes,
fellowship. I think
yes.
they meet on Thursdays.
Yes, but in the English, we don't have
In
like
the
a
right.
high population.
Right. Right. Right.
Well, first, I wanted to say that this whole idea of generations is a really big, important aspect of, this church, this local church that we get to see. We get to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And I can't stress how important it is that we
Yeah.
have like boomers and Gen Xers and millennials and Gen Zs, and we have baby booms
Mm.
right now,
Mm.
because it just reminds us like God is a God of like faithfulness from one generation to the next. And it also reminds me of the important duty each generation has to pass on that baton of faith to the generation behind them.
Yeah.
And so there's just a lot of weight. And you were at service this past Sunday.
I was. Yes. Yeah.
It was a powerful time at that prayer time at the end
Mm.
where, we had extra time and there was just that time of blessing one another, one from one generation to the next. And those are such like beautiful pictures, like of the God that we worship. And he's not just a
Mm.
God stuck in our time zone. Like he
Mm.
has exceeded our culture and our characteristics. And it's just a really beautiful picture to see his faithfulness and his truth. So with that said, both Darren and I, we have felt like we are bridge builders between the boomers and the Gen Xers to the millennials and the Gen Zs. But I don't really that generation is really foreign to me
Mm.
because they're young. I don't have a lot of access to them, and yeah, I am at the very front of the millennials.
Yeah.
That's to answer your question.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad that you stuck around, Les. I think your generation, my generation, whatever is in between, there was a time period where there was like not a lot of people stuck around, and I think right now it's what we prayed for, it's what we hoped for, and so I'm really
Yeah.
happy about that. Yeah, I mean, obviously things can change, right? But I think I think from the days when you were serving and I was serving together in youth ministry, this is the stuff we hoped for, right? That
Yep.
there would be a strong, like I guess younger generation, young families, yeah, college age people even, like
Yeah.
this did not exist, and so I'm really thankful for people like you who stuck around, and then also for the faithful. Pastors and lay people who served as counselors and everything else to help during those times. Um, where I fit in with the younger generation is I don't definitely don't fit in, but I currently preach and teach in youth ministry. And then music wise, people always come in and out of music, or I find ways to to be in their lives, I guess. Um, what encourages me about Gen Z um, are several things. But I guess what's fitting to say here on this platform is that um, I know that they live online, right? Or it's not even living online. It's just a part of life. And so whenever you see um, talk about God or Christianity or Bible verses on somebody's profile, like to me, that's just encouraging because people don't want to relate to Christianity these days, right? So just to put it out there that
Mm-hmm.
you have some sort of belief in God or you belong to some sort of church, or even like if you would post something about your faith, that's always super encouraging to me. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
we've had the lettering ministry at our church for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
and when people make art and they post it online, and sometimes it revolves around their faith or around God's word. That's
Mm-hmm.
always super encouraging to me just to see um, public proclamation of God and the gospel and
Yeah,
His
for
word out
sure.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, and also there is still value in coming to church, in showing up, right? Um, I mean, this current generation is the generation that lived through the pandemic. They're the ones that went to class online with Zoom school and everything. And
Yeah.
so just the fact that they're willing to come back to church, they're trying to get back into the feel of things. Kevin talked about singing, which of course I'm gonna hype, right? Which is like, yeah, you can't get rid of singing, and so just to see a push for that again, and to try to have some sort of like little revival in there is encouraging to me, and I think that's where I've seen where I've been encouraged by the younger generation is that they care about these things, and they do want to try to reach out to others. That's always encouraging to me. Yeah. So a bunch of different things. But yeah, I've been encouraged by them. Anything that comes to your mind?
Um, with that particular generation, the Generation Z, I do agree that they are so part of their language more than social interactions is like online interactions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that I don't know if this is an aspect of just being youthful or if this is a characteristic particular to them,
Sure.
but I do see that they are very bold and courageous, like how you mentioned about their faith. Um, it is a thing now to be posting or to be publicly proclaiming truths or to be associating to Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think what's been said in our pulpit is that they are the generation that's sorry. Um, they're gonna be lights to those in their lives. Like when we were in school, um, we could be hidden. We could have been a Christian and nobody really knew about it because they didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
to be a Christian now, like you're automatically a light because you're standing up for truths that are really unpopular. I think that's what encourages me when I hear that they are zealous to do, campus ministries.
Mm, mm,
They want to evangelize to their friends or even bring them to church. Those are really encouraging things, and
mm,
such a different time that we live in that they're facing. For us, we would have considered them hardships, but maybe because they're part of that culture,
mm.
it's how God is calling them. So I think we may not be able to understand those younger generations, but God is raising up a new generation. I think that's really encouraging.
Yeah, no, that's a great place to end, Les. Thanks for sharing your heart. Um, and yeah, I think I can speak for both of us. We're definitely thankful for the generations that have come before us. This is something that I think is really important that you and I talk about, is that we're not the first ones to do this, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
faithful men and women, not just pastors, but just church members, and that's part of the big reason why FCBC Walnut is here. And then, of course, our generations and the young ones underneath us. What's crazy is that this Gen Z is going to be like our kids' counselors. So
Exactly.
we
That's
got
why we need them.
yeah, we got some investment in this, Les.
Oh yeah, we do.
Thanks,
And
Les, for
Aaron,
taking the. Oh yeah, yeah,
this is also why I like learning these technology tools, because
yeah.
this is their language.
Sure.
I wouldn't have ever gotten an Instagram account if I wasn't mindful of the generation behind me. So,
Yeah, yeah, Les. This is these are fun times for sure. Good job.
yeah.
Thanks for doing it, Les.
All
I guess
right.
we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Aaron.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.